Or wasn't that cinematic? Anyway. So, Smalland. What can I say other than I have completely changed my opinion of this game? I have no idea why I originally said it's disappointing in comparison to Grounded. I think probably because A, I hadn't played it that much, and B, the start of the game really doesn't tell you how to do anything. And me being me, I'm a base builder rather than an adventurer, so the fact that I couldn't just build a base and get myself prepared before I went off into the world was quite jarring to me. So that probably did influence my original perception. Before I go any further, two things. Firstly, if you can hear a lot of screaming and talking in the background, my partner is watching TV, and the TV is right the other side of the wall, and it is quite loud. So I do apologise for that. Secondly, 96% of my viewers aren't subscribed, so please do subscribe to the channel. I suppose I should get these things out of the way at the beginning, which I never used to do. But please do subscribe, as I've just said. Click like on this video. And please do remember to share the video as well with all of your friends. And leave me a comment down below. That's really, 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 really useful. And very helpful, especially for Google and YouTube, because they love that sort of thing. Anyway, let's back to this. As you can probably see from my last video, where I literally had a grass hut that was about 4 foundations wide, my base and my abilities within this game have completely changed. As you can see, I have rather a large base made of wood. It's quite interesting how you actually unlock that. And I am going to probably be doing more informational videos on this. There are quite a few people who do Let's Plays, but to be honest, I've watched a few of them and they do confuse me. So there are people who've done probably a dozen, if not more, Let's Play videos, and they don't know some of the basics, which, like I say, really does confuse and concerns me somewhat, because one of them, for instance, is the fact that they are stating that their bases are degrading over time. Bases do degrade over time unless you claim the land they're on. The only place you can build without having a land claim totem, which I will show you later, is at the top of one of the great trees, which I'm currently at. But you do have to claim the entire tree. So that will be one of the caveats to that little statement. So I am going to go and get some wood. Now, this wood is slightly different to the normal wood that I showed at the beginning of my first ever video on this. So this is in the form of bark. Now you need a pickaxe, and when you get the bark, you get wood and bark from it. And those are the two components you need to make wooden structures. So the wood that you get at the beginning of the game is not for building wooden structures. You need bark as the main component. That was why I could not, for the life of me, work out how to make wooden structures. Bark is in a rather, I'm going to say, dangerous location. You do have geckos, you have green beetles, you have bees and wasps all the way around. So sorry, I really do try and perfect parry as often. Oh, missed that one. Perfect parry as often as I can rather than dodge. Don't know why. Dodge works just as well, but it's probably just the way I used to be. And I can't pick up any of the fibre. I really should have emptied out my inventory before I came down here, to be perfectly honest. Because I don't particularly want to throw any of this stuff out. Out of everything, though. Honey crumble I'll eat, because I'm running low on food anyway. So, anyway, there are lots of resources that I didn't originally have. And you only get them by basically stumbling across them. Now, these bark pieces, I actually ended up with a flint axe before I started harvesting these, because a friend of mine gave me the flint. But the flint is in this area as well. If you've got a mandible axe or a mandibular axe, pickaxe, then you can actually harvest this stuff as well. It does take more hits, but it is possible, and it's possible to get the flint here with that as well, which is kind of important, because if you couldn't use the mandibular pickaxe, you wouldn't be able to get the flint to make the flint one. So that would be rather, well, ridiculous. So I'm gonna head back to my base. I just wanted to show you the location where you actually got the bark, etc. Now, these green beetles are actually relatively simple to defeat. Literally, they'll take off, and then as they start to drop is when you need to perfect parry, and you should be able to deflect 90%, if not more, of the attacks that they do. The main reason that I haven't in the past is when I get snuck up on like that from one behind, or when they're above me. Sometimes the game doesn't recognise that you've managed to perfect block or perfect parry if the creature is above you for some strange reason. So I want to address some of the things that I said in my comparison video with Grounded. I was a little bit unfair on Smalland. I had played more of Grounded at the time, and some of the things I said are still accurate. I do honestly believe that the production values in Grounded are still considerably higher. There are still some design choices in Smalland which do puzzle me. So grass, for instance, when you just walk through it rather than bumping into it, at your size, a blade of grass should be like walking into a wooden fence. But even so, again, that's a design choice. I prefer the graphics. I must admit, I do prefer the graphics in Smalland. The seasons changing is also really nice, because in Grounded it's always the same season. In fact, you can spend years in the backyard and the weather never changes, which is a little bit odd. Whereas in Smalland, you'll get thunderstorms, you'll get rainstorms, you'll get snow and frost, as you can see. And you go through all of the seasons from summer right the way through to winter and back again. So continuous cycle. You do have these great trees, as I mentioned. So once you find a great tree and you climb it, you have to climb the first one, and you climb them by going up all of these little mushroom stroke toadstools that are attached to the side of the sure there's something following me. Nothing there, but there we go. So yeah, all of these mushrooms and these roots that are up the side, you have to basically get up there. You have to basically utilize these to get to the top of the tree. Once you've been to the top of one tree and you've claimed it, then there is a fast travel system, and by fast travel, it's not that fast. It just means you don't have to walk there. But basically, you get this little gnome here, and you call the lift. Now, oddly and annoyingly, calling the lift is the second option. The first option is making your tree either private or public. Now, public means if you invite a friend to your game, they can interact with your entire base. So it's basically essential. If you want to do a co-op game, you kind of need to make your base public. Otherwise, you can lock them in your base and they can never get out. I say never get out. When they log out and log back in, they'll appear in their own base. So that is one way. But they won't be able to get out without leaving the game. Make it public. They can do anything they want. Utilize your storage, utilize your resources. I think they can even change your base layout. But there we go. So, my base. I gave you a little tour during the opening segments, but I personally love the aesthetic of this. The fact that you've got all of this wood, you've got giant candles. providing light. You've got your normal campfires, which I need to use because I'm running out of food and I have no fuel. So I'll stick that resin in, and that's going to take a few seconds. But yeah, there's so many things that it opens up, and the way you unlock things in this game is very similar to Grounded in as far as once you find a piece of material, it unlocks specific crafting and building items. In Grounded, you have to analyze it before it does that, but in this, literally, you pick it up and it's just innately happens that you unlock it. Which I think is a pretty decent system. I still do prefer the Grounded building mechanic, where you put down your blueprint and then assign the resources to build the thing. I do like that, and I wish that was included in this game as well. But at the same time, I think the variety of buildings, the variety of structure options is just so much better in this game. You've obviously right from the start got your wood, and it allows you to use wood, whereas in Grounded you basically have weed stems, which have great big holes in them, so you can see through your building, which is very, very odd. Even the mushroom blocks, when you get later on in the game, they have chips and knocks out of them, so you can see through your walls again. Whereas in this one, it's a pretty solid building, and it does look really nice. And the fact that it's stuck in the top of a tree means you don't get attacked. Shout out to my last Grounded video where my first base attack was orb weavers, which was a lovely surprise after I'd just woken up. So yeah, I honestly do think this game is, well, it's grown on me. Me and my friend have been in it a number of times in co-op. I have my couple of tames, so I've got a grasshopper and a gecko. You can tame various other things, so grasshopper and gecko are rideable. You can tame ladybugs, which are basically, they act as a second backpack, so you can just load them up with equipment and resources and things like that. But they can't. I don't know whether they can fight, but you can't ride them anyway, but they might be able to fight. I do find that things like the grasshopper and the gecko are better when you don't ride them, so they actually perform better when they're just fighting on their own, which is useful because then you can attack the enemy from one side and your tame can attack from the other side. You have to add them to your party, so you can have any number of tames, but you do have to actually add them to your party, and you can only add one at a time. So to add another member to your party, you basically have to take the other one out. It's quite simple. You walk up to it, and on PlayStation you press the circle button to go down to the party option, and then triangle to activate it. So, as with all of my games, I have a load of storage. Now, there's two different types of chests I have available. The simple one is obviously extremely easy to make and doesn't take many resources. The downside is it's relatively small capacity. The other one is a wooden chest, which has another, I think it's 2 rows, so 50% extra storage, but it does require some pretty, not rare, but crafted items, so you have to use refined wood, for instance. So it is a bit more resource intensive. Now, as I say, I'm going to do more information videos on this purely because I really do think it warrants it. There's lots of Let's Plays out there, and although I probably might do some of those videos in the future, I think there's information is quite lacking. So where resources are gathered, how to do certain things within the game, like use your pixie sense. And although it does tell you when you first start, it's one of those things where it's very easy to forget when you just fall into your normal survival mode. The benefit of pixie sense is it does give you information on creatures that you're fighting and want to tame, or just gives you their information about their general weakness, which again is really important, because when you're fighting something, to know that it's actually weak against blunt damage is really helpful, because you can then just go, well, I'm going to put my sword away and pull out my massive hammer that I've got, and you know that you're going to do additional damage, which I think is really, really helpful. So you can see the building mechanic here. It's just a case of you have to equip your crafting hammer. It's not just a case of doing whatever you want. You do have to put your building hammer on. Once you do that, you have access to the structures menu, and then you can just select whichever structure. You find where you want to put it. The problem that I have had a few times is sometimes its snap points are not very good. So railings are the biggest issue that I've had. Sometimes they just do not want to snap onto the actual steps that you're trying to put them on. That being said, it's only occasionally. And as I say, I think this is a relatively small development team. And what they've managed to craft is grown on me to the extent where I think I actually prefer this over Grounded. And sorry to say that to the people who agreed with me in my last video that Grounded is a better game, but I do think Grounded has more jump scare moments for definite, without a doubt. This is very much more an epic tale rather than a cinematic jump scare style thing, and I use that phrase quite a lot. I suppose I should describe what I mean by epic. So when you're considering games like this, especially open world games, how big they feel as a world is quite important. So although Grounded is a small game in as far as you are a small shrunken down child, the back garden does feel quite large, but I use the term quite large because it doesn't feel as big as most other survival games out there. If you consider Ark, the island is pretty massive in comparison. This Smalland, I mean, is probably somewhere between Ark and Grounded in sense of scale. But there's a lot of it I haven't yet unlocked, and I think that is where I'm going to really get that sense of scale drop in, because once I start unlocking all of the other locations and things like that, I think there's going to be a really, really big change to how it feels. Don't want that. I want a full-size ceiling there. Dismantling items gets you all of their resources back as well, which is really useful. So not just half of it like you.
Well, thank you for watching this video. I hope it's gone some way to clarify my feelings on Smalland. As I said right at the beginning, I think the fact that I hadn't played overly much of this game, and I had played quite a lot of Grounded, did colour my perception of this significantly. Now I've had a good 20 odd hours in this. It is a brilliant survival game. There are some obvious things that they could have done differently. Walking through plants, for instance, etc. But the core gameplay here, and the fact that they are still looking to support it quite heavily, is really good. I think there's a lot for survival fans to enjoy in this. The fact that you don't have to drink as well as eat, you just have to have a meal, and that does both because it's your nourishment level rather than your food and water. I think it's a different take, but it's definitely a good one. And the fact that you do have your temperature balance, so it's not necessarily talking about the specific temperature, but it just gives you a balance as to whether you're comfortable in the temperature you're in. Again, that's really good, and there are both armors and also concoctions that you make at the cauldron that will help with either cold weather or hot weather. So they have thought of a lot of things. The building mechanic for me is one of the best parts of this game because, as I stated at the beginning, I am a builder when it comes to survival games. I like to make a really good functional base that does as much as I need it to. I like to build in extra space for anything I might unlock in the future, but I also like to have the ability to expand. And the fact that you have to do quite a bit of adventuring before you unlock that was unexpected, and I don't know why it was unexpected, because it actually makes much more sense than some of the other games. Ark, for instance, you can literally learn everything just by standing on a beach and building stuff and basically cutting down trees. You can level up quite a lot, and that will unlock all different types of crafting buildings, etc. Whereas this, you have to learn those crafting recipes by acquiring the materials. And I suppose if you think about it, that's how everyone learns. You pick something up and you play around with it until you manage to do something with it. So yeah, I think this is absolutely brilliant, and I will be doing more information videos on it soon. Well guys, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. As I said at the beginning, please make sure you do click the like button, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and please do make a comment below on what you thought of this video and what you want to see in the future. I will see you in my next video very soon. You all take care. Bye for now.